Skip, you ready to start?
Yeah, give me about 2 seconds. This thing fixing to kick up, and I'll let you know. Just give me just a minute. You're good to go.
All right, gentlemen, I'd like to thank all of y'all for coming to our meeting of the Audit Committee. First thing we need to do is call a roll. Lillard.
Yes. Here.
German.
Yes, here.
Steve Reeves.
Here.
Miles Wilson.
Here.
And Oglesby is here. Gentlemen, our first order of business is the election of officers. I'm the chairman, Skip's the secretary, and I think Steve Reeves is the vice chairman, if I'm not mistaken, but the floor is open for nominations.
I think all of you are doing a good job. I re-nominate all of you.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. We've got to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Lillard.
Yes.
Commissioner German.
Yes.
Commissioner Reeves.
I'll pass, but I'll pass.
Don't worry, I won't show up at the next meeting. You can be chairman. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen. Well, we're going to keep our same chair, vice chair, and Skip's our illustrious secretary. The purpose of our meeting is to go over the audit findings, and I'm not going to go over everything and read everything to you in great detail. I'm going to hit what I think are the high points. All of these audit findings are in the Board of Education. As you're aware, I'm sure most of you have scanned through this thing. So I'd like to predicate this by saying that these findings happened before Dr. Versey Hamlet became our superintendent. This was under Dr. King's watch. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. Dr. Hamlet and her staff had absolutely nothing to do with any of these findings. That being said, there were 5 findings from the school board. The first of which was the general purpose school fund required material audit adjustments for proper financial statement presentation. At June 30th, 2020, certain general ledger account balances in the general purpose school fund were not materially correct, and audit adjustments totaling $1,513,961 were required for the financial statements to be correct at the year's end. That's the first finding. Second finding is the office had deficiencies in budget operations. I'm going to hit the high points in this category. Expenditures exceeded appropriations approved by the county commission in 5 of the 25 major appropriation categories. Salaries exceeded appropriation in 7 of 82 salary line items in the general purpose school fund by amounts ranging from $5,562 to $165,397. And in 5 of 19 salary line items in the school federal projects fund, amounts ranging from $123 to $260,378. Several budget amendments were posted in the general purpose school and school federal projects funds that were not approved by the county commission. Third finding was some journal entries were posted in the general purpose school and school federal projects funds that contained errors or were not supported by adequate documentation. During review of journal entries posted to the general purpose school and school federal project funds, noted some journal entries that contained errors totaling $105,355 in the general purpose school fund and $14,000 in the school federal projects fund. Number 4, the school department was assessed interest and penalties totaling $68,823 by the Internal Revenue Service. The school department maintains a bank clearing account with the county trustee to deposit employee payroll taxes due to the IRS. Total amounts deposited and reported for the quarters ending September 30th, 2019 and December 31st, 2019 were less than the amounts due. The IRS notified the school department, and on April 13th, 2020, of the errors in the resulting assessment of $68,823 in interest and penalties. And finally, the last deficiency was the office had purchasing deficiencies. Competitive bids were not solicited for a billboard advertisement and painting improvements totaling $31,005 and $24,800 respectively. In 7 of 35 applicable instances, purchase orders were issued after purchases were made. In 4 of 62 applicable instances, proper documentation was not on file to support the purchases. And finally, in 21 of 51 applicable instances, invoices were paid without documentation that goods had been received and or services had been rendered. Now that's just kind of a synopsis of what the findings were on the school board. As far as the rest of the county is concerned, I think the best thing to do there is read you their opinion of the rest of the county's audit. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the government activities, the aggregate discretely presented component units, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Fayette County, Tennessee, as of June 30th, 2020, and the respective changes in financial position of the respective budgetary comparisons for the general and highway public works funds for the year that ended in accordance with accounting principles. That's a good audit, in my opinion, and I think Charles McNabb and Skip and the road board are do a thank you there. But other than that, that pretty well concludes it. Skip, you add anything you think is pertinent? But
No, like I said, I think, Mr. Harville's on here. I think he can sort of go over the odds and ends, but from the county side, we had a good year, and we put good practices in place, and we'll just continue to work it. So, and I want to reach out to all the employees and departments. They've really worked with us and done what they're supposed to.
Mr. Harville, would you like to have anything to say about these?
Yes. First, and I'm glad that you mentioned that these things, this report actually was before Dr. Hammett got here also, as well as myself.
Correct.
And, we feel comfortable that we're going to be able to resolve these issues, and have actually began working on these findings. So if I can tell you what we've done to this point, if you're interested in knowing that, I'm not sure what the process and protocols are for the meeting, but if you're interested in knowing what we've done in regards to each of these findings, I can tell you.
Yes, sir. I think we'd like to hear that.
Okay. So the corrective action plan that we submitted, beginning with the very first audit finding 001, about the material audit adjustments for proper financial statement presentation. That is one that will be taken care of when we close the books. I think the biggest problem there is that accounts receivables and payables were not posted, and the auditors had to come in and do a lot of that. So it was a lot of closing entries that should have been made, but were not made. And so, at June 30th, we intend to be able to take care of that situation. I don't see that there will be any problems in regards to that, because it's just normal accounting business. Deficiencies in budget operations. We just submitted some amendments just this week for many of the budgets that were approved, or actually funds that had been received by the district, many grants. And so we are, putting forth those amendments. We're also reviewing accounts to make sure that the budget that we have, that the projections with those, and particularly in the salary line items, appear to be good and reasonable. So we're working on those projections, and we'll have some amendments related to that, because as I look at the budget, there are some lines that need to be adjusted, and so we'll be bringing that forth in future amendments. So again, I don't see a problem in terms of trying to get the budget amendments in and getting those to the commission to be approved. Journal entries, the journal entries that we've done for the first 6 months, what we've done is I've had staff go back and look at each journal entry and check to see if supporting documentation was present, and supporting documentation was not present, then we found that supporting documentation. So although we're looking from the standpoint of basically December on, in terms of our efforts to comply for this year, we've actually gone back to July 1 to check all documents just to make sure that everything has supporting documentation. All purchases, we have packing slips, invoices, contracts, bids, and those kind of things. So we're going over the documentation, and I think that we're going to be okay with that. For the Internal Revenue Service, we are still waiting to hear something from the Internal Revenue Service in regards to the overpayments. But the process that we put into place at this particular point is that all of our checks now, when we take them over to the trustee's office, someone in the trustee's office has to sign for them. And in terms of calling the taxes in, we have multiple people notified on the day that the taxes are reported, to be reported, that they have been called in. And outside of a reconciliation process with that, again, I think that we have a process in place that's going to help ensure that we won't have missing tax payments. With the purchasing deficiencies, one of the problems that we had that created a lot of the situation here was the $10,000 bid limitation. We've changed the board policy. The board policy had $25,000 for bid limitations, and that was not correct. And so we took that policy back to the $10,000, which is the legal limit as far as being able to make a purchase without advertising. So we've taken that back in terms of the board policy, informed all the staff that they must have a purchase order in order to make a purchase, and just reaffirm that, that process. So again, I know 2 years ago, we didn't have these findings here. And so again, I believe it's something that we can correct. It's been done before. And so I believe that we can do it again.
Mr. Harvell, quick question on the limit. I don't remember the proper TCA, but somewhere in there it seems that you could go to 25,000 if you had the staff in place to monitor it. Are y'all looking to sort of get through the interim and go back up there, or has that been discussed, or was I reading the site wrong?
Well, actually, it never was correct, to be honest with you, Mayor.
Okay.
There never was a process in which we could actually go to a $25,000 bid limitation because we do not have a purchasing department. There was some interpretations that were made and they said we were going to do this, but it never was the case. And I think that the audit report itself says that we did not meet that standard. So we again went back to what the initial board policy is for our particular situation, and that would be the $10,000 bid limitation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I've got one question. Mr. Harvell, going back to the IRS, September 30th, December 31st, the end of those 2 quarters, were we late in the payments? Were they miscalculated, or were they just not made?
The payments were made, And we have the documentation to support that the payment was made. The Internal Revenue Service was not able to find a record of the payment in their records. We have information from the trustee's office where we made the payment, but I think the crux of the problem was actually calling it in, that there was there was mishandling of that. And so we made our payment. We didn't call it in maybe timely. It might have been the next day or something of that matter. But the payment was actually made, but it just wasn't reported correctly.
The payment you made was a transfer to the trustee's office, so his money is waiting on you to call it in.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it didn't get called into the IRS. The money was transferred or whatever. It just was missing the step to go ahead to the IRS. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so
So
we put in.
So that being said, there's no basis for an appeal to the IRS to credit back the interest and penalties. I mean, we were at fault for not having that, right?
For not calling it in, for not reporting it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Harville. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Harville?
One quick thing, just a point of interest, the PO limit. What's y'all's PO limit over there now?
Our PO limit?
When you have, at what level do you have to have a PO now?
We have to have a PO for everything now.
Oh, for everything, for any part?
Yeah, that is
Okay.
that is our policy now. You have to have a PO for everything. I think we got away from that, but if you like for Fayette County to have this thing and you want to buy it, do it without a PO.
Okay.
And you can give it to them, but otherwise we need to have a purchase order. So that's the comment that we made to the staff. If you need it bad enough and you're willing to pay for it, do it without a PO.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Harville, we appreciate you explaining all that to us and your remedies for these deficiencies. And once again, we certainly want everybody to know this happened and somebody else is watching, not y'all.
Yes. Sir.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
I see Charles McNabb's on. Charles, have you got any comments to make? You need to unmute, Charles.
I'm sorry. No, I think everything's been gone over pretty well. I'm sorry for being a little late. Took me a little longer to get where I had some internet access to get online, but I was watching on YouTube before I actually joined.
Well, we'd like to thank you for the great job you do up there. You're one reason that we get these good audits, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. It's a team effort.
Sure is. Mayor, have you got anything else we need to go over?
No, sir. I believe you covered all the bases.
Well, I'd like to thank all of y'all for coming and spending your time to do this, and we'll have it ready to present to the county commission.
We'll do. I'll have the minutes ready at the next meeting, and I'll have them read into the minutes.
Thank all y'all.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Claude.
Thank you, Claude.
See you later. Good night.
Thank you much. Bye-bye.